Thank you, Bitcoin Queen, for hosting us. And today we're going to talk about interoperability. I'm joined by Chango from the Cosmos ecosystem. My name is Matt from the Nervos ecosystem. So these are two projects with a strong focus on interoperability and all right, thank you. And strong opinions about the future of blockchains and what these networks look like. So Chango, if you will, please let us know a little bit about yourself, what you've worked on, what you're working on now, and anything new and interesting about the Cosmos ecosystem and how Cosmos views interoperability. And as far as Cosmos goes, if some people are not, I guess, aware of the project or know much about the project, how would you explain Cosmos to someone? These are mushrooms.
Hello. Oh. Okay. All right. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. So you get to just think of it as a network of mycelium. Cosmos is both an app chain framework and a network of networks. So our goal is eventually, if the crypto space as a whole converges on a standard communication protocol, that it's going to be IBC, and that completely abstracts away the need for bespoke bridges that are like chains between intermediary chains between one another, and that makes the whole space more secure. So that's kind of the power of Cosmos. So Cosmos is a network of mycelium, and Ethereum, Solana, these layer ones are like trees. And if the mycelium are at the bottom of these trees, it helps them grow better.
It's a great analogy.
Yeah.
As far as what's going on in Cosmos today, like what's interesting or exciting to you?
Yeah, if you guys have been following Cosmos lately, the conversation is about Atom 2.0 versus Atom 1 constitution. And the history with that is, so Cosmos has been running live since 2019, and there hasn't been any innovative application that has been folded into the Cosmos Hub yet, outside of proof of stake staking. So right now the conversation is, how do we create how do we turn Atom into the reserve asset of the interchain? And the answer is, well, we're going to do interchain security. And if you guys want to know what interchain security is the idea that I could have my Cosmos Hub and my atoms and the validators on the Cosmos Hub are cross-securing other app chains in order to bootstrap them. So that's interchain security. But there's another more interesting thing now, because it's like 2022. We were talking about interchain security in 2020, and it's a little bit late-ish now in the implementation. Now we're talking about mesh security. Mesh security is what's interesting. So mesh security is this idea that you could do bilateral staking between two different app chains. And it doesn't matter what staking token you use. It's like I could have a completely new chain, Foo chain, and my native token is Foo, and I could have Osmosis, and we could have a handshake agreement and say, I'm going to import Osmosis' staking token to buttress my security, and Osmosis can buttress its security using my staking token Foo. And if you scale that up to n number of chains, then you have a mesh network of security across different chains. And I think that that's the way that this entire space is moving, because like if you look at what a blockchain is, it's an execution layer, it's a data availability layer, and it's a consensus security layer. So if you break it down into those three things, and if each app chain has all of those features, then they're all going to provide data availability to each other. They're all going to provide security to the other. and then we have a real like peer-to-peer like mesh network like Web3 Internet of Blockchains at the end of it all, like 10, 20 years from now.
Is it safe to say with that idea of mesh security that all those chains are sharing the same like pooled security?
Yeah. Yeah.
So all the coins that are staked across the entirety of the network could be used to secure, I guess, the entirety of the network.
Well, yeah. Well, it's more of a peer-to-peer network. Like I have an app chain here that's sort of on the periphery, and maybe I only want to share security with one other chain. But then there's like this whole other like mycelium network that are all cross-staked with each other. And so if any validator equivocates on any one of these chains, and if it's cross-staked with like 5 other app chains, if it does one thing bad on one chain, it gets slashed on all 5, making the whole making it more secure overall. It's like more secure, if they get slashed on 5 chains, than if they only get slashed on one.
In terms of interoperability, so you've worked on Cosmos for some time. How have you seen how people view interoperability change over the years?
Yeah, people are starting to agree that app chains are the future and that multi-chain is the future. Whereas before they were saying that everything's going to reside on Ethereum.
There are still people that think everything's going to reside on Ethereum.
Yeah, and there's people who are saying, okay, well, it's going to be a roll up on Ethereum, and it's still going to be like same like VM model and everything. But yeah, I think people are coming to realize that it's the end state of this whole Web3 narrative is going to end up looking like Cosmos.
So there's that contrast between, say, everything on one chain, say all those rollups on Ethereum that are secured by Ethereum, and then this concept of mesh security, where those chains are picking and choosing who can secure together.
Yeah.
Are there any trade-offs or any kind of clear differences that you see in those two different models?
Okay, so just to clarify, on Ethereum, the thesis is there's a single settlement layer. That's one settlement layer is Ethereum. So even if Ethereum has 20 different rollups, if any of those rollups have competing transactions and it's unclear which ones came first in which rollups, whatever was checkpointed first onto Ethereum, that's the source of truth. So that's the definition of single settlement layer. And then in Cosmos, well, we have multiple settlement layers. We're saying there's not one canonical chain that decides the order of transactions across everything. It's that you're your own settlement layer. So any Cosmos app chain settles on itself, and it doesn't rely on some external chain to figure out what the source of truth is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so the chains are sovereign.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The topic is interoperability. Are there any, I guess, trade-offs as far as like moving assets between chains and those kind of different models, say like the Ethereum vision and the Cosmos vision? Like from a user's perspective, like, are they thinking about more? Is it more difficult to navigate the ecosystem?
So on Ethereum, you still even between rollups, you need like you need some kind of bridging mechanism. I believe it for a rollup, it's like one sequencer, I think, and he's like that sequencer is the one that's like checkpointing in Ethereum and signing these transactions. And then like between Polygon and Ethereum, they run their own multi-sig bridge. And so all of this is like really trusted. It's like not great. And then on Cosmos, you have IBC. So it's trustless the way you transact between chains. So the way 2 different Cosmos app chains talk to each other is they speak the same light client language. And then we have like relayers that run light clients between these 2 chains. And then because of that, you're able to trustlessly transact. The relayers, all they do is provide an IBC highway between one chain to another, and then drive the little box cars that passes the message between each chain. That's all it does, and that's a trustless process because the relayers don't know what's inside any of the boxes with the messages. So,
has anyone lost any money to a bridge hack on any blockchain? No one. That's great because there's been like $3 billion in bridge hacks or something. I haven't been keeping track, but
a lot of money.
Can you explain kind of what happens in these bridges that are getting hacked and how that contrasts? You mentioned light clients a little bit with IBC, but kind of like you help people understand more of like why it's safer?
So the latest bridge hack with Nomad had to do. There was like
Nomad's that's
No.
complicated. Just like it's
Okay.
just multi-sig bridges. There's so many of those, you know.
yeah. Oh, so which bridge hack were you?
And just I guess the most common are, I guess any of them are just bugs, right? So I guess Nomad's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. So most of these bridges are run by multi-sigs. I guess the Ronin hack from the Axie Infinity Bridge, that one was because they stored keys on like a hot server, and then the server got compromised, so their keys got compromised, and then it was like $300 million or something.
Yeah, I think 600 million, and
600
if
million.
you compromised like I guess two keys basically, or two machines, then
Yeah.
like that's $600 million basically stored in a wallet that if you compromise a few keys, you could take all the money.
Yeah. Yeah. Similar thing with Nomad. They all have different security protocols, but then they, like a hacker abuses the way like you do Merkle proofs. The Binance bridge hack was the most recent one. They actually did use like our old code, the old IBC core code, and yeah, it was hacked, and it created some alarms in Cosmos, and a lot of it's gotten patched. So yeah, but a lot of it has to do with how people implement Merkle proof verification. So yeah, it's just these things need to be audited.
I guess along those lines, like in terms of future proofing, what mistakes do you see blockchains making, or people building blockchains? What mistakes are they making?
So I think that the space has evolved, like scaled so fast, so wide, and it, like, if people had more, if the builders had more time to kind of test these out before it scaled to billions of dollars, and these hacks would be less devastating. But it's just we're scaling past faster than or the demand is faster than we could patch bugs.
I guess when you look at I guess blockchains, like you mentioned before, kind of mesh security and the network of app chains. Like what does the future of blockchains look like to you from, say, a user's perspective? What are they approaching? What does it look like?
I mean, right now the users, the UX of doing cross-chain, if you're looking at Avalanche to Ethereum, or like Polygon to Ethereum, or like Ethereum to Harmony, it's really, really clunky. You have to go, like, you have to bridge it over to the other chain, and then if the other chain has a DEX, you have to hope that there's liquidity in that token pair to swap it, to do whatever it is that you want in the destination application that you want. So like one example is Ohm. Like Ohm forks were huge, right, in the last bull market. So the destination is the Ohm fork, and I need to like acquire the Ohm token. And in order to do that, I had to do, like 4 hops in order to get just to make that one transaction. Eventually, the hope is that you could abstract 4 hops away into like, 1 or 2 transactions. And when you come to the Cosmos ecosystem, actually, it is currently like 2 transactions. So it's really nice. The UX is really, really nice, because you don't have to go through different bespoke bridges in order to like try to do what you want.
Yeah, with Nervos, it's a major focus of just making everything compatible. It's like that should help the user experience. I guess major innovations, things you're excited about, kind of like coming down, in the future, like what you see.
So one big news is Circle is integrating their USDC stablecoin natively to Cosmos. So they're using interchain security from the Cosmos hub and issuing USDC from a generalized issuance chain. And that's going to be really big because Cosmos does not have any native money in our ecosystem. We're a net importer of money. What that means is, if you look at Osmosis does more than 90% of transactions within Cosmos. It has the most IBC transactions. And the majority of its money is being imported through our bridge. Our bridge is Axelar. So Axelar bridges all of the money from other ecosystems like Ethereum, WBTC, WETH, and USDC, and DAI primarily, onto Osmosis, which and then most of those comprise of like over 70% of the value in the pools, in the most popular pools on Osmosis. So we're a net importer of money. When we have a native USDC integration, it means we no longer have to rely on a bridge to import money when we have a native money in our ecosystem. So it's looking like the first mover is USDC. So that's pretty bullish. It'll be really good for the next bull run.
So you're a fan of USDC? No.
I wouldn't say I'm a fan. It's just that, you talk to a bunch of different stablecoin applications, and USDC was,
Yeah, it is.
they
common denominator.
Yeah, I mean USDC. Yeah, I mean we had UST, and then that's a long story. I mean, you know that story.
I guess with that we can open up to questions. If anyone wants to pose some questions, I got one. You run the-
Thank you for the information. What are some of the most popular app chains on Cosmos? Isn't Crypto.com built on Cosmos?
Yeah.
Like their chain. Are there other ones that people would
Crypto.com,
know?
Binance chain.
Binance is also.
Yeah. I mean Osmosis, obviously.
Crypto and Binance are like the top. Like
They're the top one.
Terra wasn't, right?
Terra was. Yeah,
Terra
absolutely
was as well.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh, Polygon is. Fun fact. Yeah. They use our stack, and then all of their marketing says they're not, but they use our stack. So if they wanted to open up IBC, they could have.
I guess I have a question. How does Cosmos identify itself as the internet of blockchains?
What do you mean? How does it identify?
Well, that's your slogan. So I want to know, like, how you guys came up to that. What's your, I guess, what points to that?
Well, okay. So the Cosmos vision was started in like as early as 2016, and it hasn't changed. It's more like the entire crypto space has moved to prove that vision. When we were talking about it in like 2017, everyone was like, I don't think so. Like world of app chains, like app chain to app chain communication, like why is that going to be a thing? It's all going to be on Ethereum. But then now people are starting to realize that you need application specific chains in order to scale. That's the entire thesis. That you can't just scale blockchains on a single settlement layer. It just doesn't work that way. So, just look at Ethereum. Like none of this scales. Also, by the way, transactions per second is not a measurement of scaling. Transactions per second is just speed. So, how do you define scaling? It's the ability to run a full node and sync up to the latest state with some like general hardware, like a Raspberry Pi or something like that. You could do that with Bitcoin. You just need a couple of days. With Ethereum, it's impossible. At this point, there's just like centralized choke points on Ethereum. You can't run a full node on like a fully verifying node on Ethereum. That's why you have to rely on Infura, Alchemy, all these third-party providers. So that's where these choke points emerge, and it ultimately hurts decentralization. So you need application-specific chains. Like if you believe in the Ethereum thesis of all these rollups and everything, well, it's traded off a lot of decentralization. Everything that runs on a single runtime, like just like dig a little bit underneath the surface, and you'll see that this is true. Yeah.
I think you said this is how Nervos works. Do you ever see kind of like a Cosmo architecture as like a layer 2 on top of Ethereum or another layer 1? I think that's what Nervos does, right? Or similar, but does the app chain make sense as like a layer on top of a base, or is it have advantages without having that, like you said, that Pinocchio, is that the word? Central ledger?
Yeah, I guess I can take that. I mean, Cosmos is this vision of the internet of blockchains where there is no main settlement chain. It's just all these blockchains are sovereign, they're connected. Nervos is a different idea where there is like an L1 settlement layer, and then you do have all these app chains at L2, and yeah, it's so you could do app chains as L2s or L1s, and there's trade-offs between those. You don't get sovereignty if you're running it as an L2, because you basically need to use the L1 for what those L2s are doing.
So I guess someone on the chat wants to know about, I guess, like Cosmos safety in terms of chain, and like why bridging, what can make bridging safer, I guess, would be what they're looking an answer to.
Yeah, so all Cosmos chains run on Tendermint BFT. So the Tendermint safety guarantees is that as long as 2/3 of the validators are honest, then you're going to have business as usual. But over that threshold, then, or 2/3 of the voting power rather. So over that threshold, then it's compromised. But if you look at Tendermint, most validators are honest because a lot of it relies on like trust and reputation. And they're immediately kicked out of the validator set if they are found not to be reputable. So every single Cosmos chain currently uses Tendermint out of the box. And yeah, those are the safety guarantees. So if you're a Cosmos app chain and you run Tendermint, that means you also speak the light client language. So the way that IBC works is that it's just relayers in between two different app chains running light clients on the other chain to make sure like attestations that you see are true. And then that's how you basically send transactions across each chain without creating any intermediary blockchain that creates that you append to or anything, or a multi-sig. So that's why it's trustless, because all it is doing is it's relying on the security guarantees of your partner chain. So if your partner chain ends up being corrupted, then yeah, you're screwed. But then, so that's the trust. That's the security assumption. It's that you don't do business with someone you don't trust, and that someone is an app chain, and vice versa. Like, don't open up an IBC connection with an app chain that you think is kind of sketchy, and like token distribution is weird or something. Like 90% to the team and then 10% to community or something is probably they're probably going to rug, right?
I have a question. So what are you guys most excited about Web3, and why do you have strong faith for Web3?
I think seeing blockchains actually scale, like with, say, with NFTs, right? Like we found a new use case, and I think people kind of quickly found like the boundaries of like what we could do today. Like if we wanted to onboard hundreds of millions of people using these things every day, like it just wasn't practical. And I think I've seen a repeated cycle through these different bull runs where people come up with exciting new use cases for blockchains, and then they hit these walls. And I think just through the nature of technology, I know that won't always be the case. So, for me, it's when we actually see these things, like people have talked about the promise of blockchains for years, whether it's DeFi, NFTs, it's all like a very common story. But when people start to actually use these things in ways that are exciting, we hit these walls. And I think there will come a day very soon where that's not happening anymore.
Okay, so I get stuck on the nomenclature because Web3 is used so generally now. There's a lot of things to unpack. First of all, the way that Web3 is being used is to refer to what's on a smart contract. Anything that's on a smart contract on Ethereum, be it OpenSea, be it Bored Ape or whatever, is Web3, right? Okay, on the other end, there's something called decentralized web, where it's actually talking about like internet protocol infrastructure. What part of DNS is centralized? How do we decentralize that part? What part of I don't know what other parts, like UI, cloud providers like Amazon, Cloudflare, these service providers, registrars, all of that other stuff that provides the backbone to the internet. That stuff is decentralized web, and there's not a whole lot of work done on that part. And that part is way more slow moving and harder to reform, basically. And so, difference between Web3 and DWeb is that. So I think you're talking about the former, right? Which is, I even forgot your question. Why are you bullish Web3? Was that your question? Okay.
Yeah, I didn't address the faith part. I got into crypto because it seemed like a superior technological solution for problems. I mean, if you think about even how many passwords does each of us have? Hundreds probably. And the idea of just like signing something with a private key when I wanted to log into a website, it's a superior experience because I only need to hold like one key and then I can use it for all these websites. And that's what I see with crypto. It's a series of like technological solutions that just work better, whether it's Bitcoin for money or cryptography for signing into websites or NFTs for owning digital objects. There's just this, I guess, just this wealth of solutions that are just better for our world. And I think we just keep hitting, one at a time. We see them.
Yeah. So the way most of the space is being built right now is like, here's the internet population, the netizens, and then here's crypto. Like these are blockchains. It's on Mars. My stance is, okay, it's nice that people are building on Mars and everything, but people on Earth can't really talk to the people on Mars. So let's build the ship that helps the two talk. And in between, that's like, I don't know, like another decade of work, right? We're so far, it's still really early.
Hi. We talked about scalability a lot, and I guess I don't really know the impact that Cosmos experienced based in the Terra Luna crash. You talked to what was that like? Like I'm expecting the depth and breadth of the scalability to have a major impact when something like that happens. How did Cosmos react?
So on the whole, it was extremely positive for the Cosmos ecosystem. Terra didn't crash because of scalability. Terra crashed because of flawed mechanism designed for their stablecoin. The impact, yeah, on Cosmos. Okay.
You're gonna have way more transactions. You're gonna have people dumping Bitcoin to keep the USD. A bunch of stuff that was gonna happen at the same time.
Yeah.
And we've talked about scalability, so I'm just curious what that impact is like on the tech.
On the tech, it didn't really hurt at all. So this was pointed out that even though volumes had been higher than ever before because people were trying to exit and people were trying to use other forms of liquidity to exit out of bad money, it stress tested the Cosmos stack and it didn't hurt it. It's sufficiently robust enough to withhold that kind of volume. Yeah. And so Tendermint is currently not state of the art, but it's very close to being. It's the best for BFT proof of stake still. Honestly, we have around 200 TPS, and that's fine. 150 validating nodes, so it's only going to improve with batch signature verification, like BLS or whatever. That's currently being heavily researched. So yeah, from a tech point of view, it was perfectly fine. Financially, though, everyone got wrecked. Yeah.
Do it. How? There we go. Any more questions before we wrap up? Okay, I'm going to hand the mic back to Matt. Any last minute thoughts?
I just want to thank everyone for coming out. Thank Chango for taking the time to speak to us about Cosmos and interoperability. And
thank you guys for coming out. Thank you for having me. Thanks for the great moderation. Thanks for organizing.
If you guys would like to talk to our speakers, they'll be hanging out. You guys can follow them on social media. Chango has a Twitter, and so does Matt at Chango, I believe, and at Matt_Bitcoin. And of course, keep up with the projects if you guys have any interest in the future of how the blockchain scales, because as we've seen, there's a lot of things that are Even though we all love Ethereum dearly, it does have an EVM and it does connect to all these chains. So, cross compatibility and Web3 in the future, it has to be cross compatible. So make sure you educate yourself on, the advancements of blockchain and how it's important. And remember, the internet bubble was a thing once upon a time. AOL was king. Who's that? Exactly. Take care, guys, and enjoy some food.